While I was lying on an operating table in Europe, fighting for my life, my daughter calmly sold my beach house, my wife's and my love letter, and bought her in-laws shiny new cars. When I returned, I heard her mocking laughter. "Oh, I thought you weren't coming back." I just smiled, because she didn't know what the house really was. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Something was off. My daughter hadn't cooked dinner in 3 years, yet here she was, smiling too wide as she set down a perfect roast. "Daddy, I made your favorite." Bertha's voice carried that sugary tone she used when she wanted something, the kind that made my stomach tighten even before I understood why. I sat at the head of the table, watching her hands shake slightly as she served the meat. Melvin occupied the chair across from me, his eyes darting between his wife and his plate. The silverware clinked against porcelain with an unnatural sharpness in the silence. "Looks wonderful," I said, picking up my fork. The smell was right, rosemary and garlic, just like Elizabeth used to make. But Elizabeth had been gone for 5 years, and Bertha had never bothered to learn her mother's recipes until tonight. We ate in forced cheerfulness. Bertha laughed at nothing, too loud. Melvin nodded along, rubbing his hands together under the table. I'd noticed that habit before. He did it when he was nervous about something. "So, Dad?" Melvin cleared his throat, his voice pitched higher than usual. "We wanted to talk to you about the future." I set my fork down slowly. "The future. You're leaving for Switzerland in 2 days, Bertha jumped in. 6 months is a long time. We've been thinking." "About what?" I cut through the buildup. 3 years of letting them live here rent-free had taught me to recognize the setup. Melvin's hands stopped moving. "About the house. This house. We were thinking, with you gone for so long, maybe it makes sense for us to take over, officially." The roast turned to ash in my mouth. I swallowed carefully, buying time. "Take over." "We'd take care of everything," Bertha said quickly. Her smile had vanished. This was the real conversation now, no more pretense. The mortgage, utilities, maintenance, you wouldn't have to worry about a thing while you're getting treatment. "I have automatic payments set up." My voice stayed level. "Everything's handled." "But what if something goes wrong?" She leaned forward, and I saw it then, the calculation in her eyes. "What if the house needs repairs? What if I die?" I finished for her. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Melvin looked at his plate. Bertha's jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant." Yes, it was. I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping against hardwood. "You're worried about what happens to this house if I don't come back." She stood too, her voice rising. "Don't twist this around. We're trying to help you. You won't last long anyway with that heart condition. Someone needs to be practical here." The words hung in the air between us. "Won't last long." My own daughter, saying it out loud like she was discussing the weather. "You could sell the beach house," Melvin offered weakly. "Get a nice apartment somewhere smaller. That way you get this house now instead of waiting." I kept my hands steady, though my chest had started to ache. "I'm not selling anything. This is my home." Bertha's face flushed red. "Your home? We've lived here for 3 years. We've been taking care of you." "Taking care of me?" I laughed, bitter. "You mean living rent-free while I paid for groceries and utilities?" "We're family," she was screaming now. "That house is going to be mine anyway when you're gone. Why can't you just—" She reached for my arm. I pulled back, the movement automatic. "Get out of my way." I walked toward my bedroom, each step measured. Bertha shouted something behind me, but I'd stopped listening. The door closed with a solid click. I turned the lock. My hands shook as I sat on the edge of the bed. The chest pain intensified. Nothing dangerous, just stress. I'd had the same feeling after Elizabeth died, when I realized I was truly alone. I pressed my palm against my sternum and breathed slowly. Elizabeth's photo sat on the nightstand. 42 years we'd had together. We'd built this house, raised Bertha in it, made every mortgage payment on time. Now our daughter wanted to erase me from it before I was even gone. Voices drifted through the door, Bertha and Melvin, thinking I couldn't hear them. 6 months, Bertha said. He'll be gone for 6 months. We could change everything by then. What if he comes back? Maybe he won't. That treatment isn't guaranteed. And even if he does... She paused. I pressed my ear closer to the door. I have the power of attorney for paying bills. I can work with that. Bertha, that's smart. He signed those papers last year. He doesn't even remember half of what I can access. My hand tightened on the bedpost. The wood grain pressed into my palm as their voices faded down the hallway. I couldn't sleep. By 6 a.m, I was dressed and in my car, driving downtown. Bernard's office didn't open until 9, but I was already in the parking lot at 7:30. I sat in my car, unshaven and wearing yesterday's clothes. The stubble on my face felt foreign. I hadn't skipped shaving in years. But sleep had been impossible after hearing Bertha's words through the door. She's my daughter, I kept thinking. Then I'd remember. She hoped I wouldn't return. At 8:45, Bernard's silver sedan pulled into his reserve spot. He stepped out, noticed my car, and his expression shifted immediately. We'd served together in the army 40 years back. He could still read me. "Horace!" He walked over, hand extended. But when he reached me, the handshake became a grip on my arm. "What happened?" "I need to talk, legally." His office smelled like coffee and old paper. He closed the door, gestured to a chair. I sat and told him everything. The dinner, the demand, the conversation I'd overheard. I kept my voice steady, presenting facts the way I used to present engineering reports. No self-pity, just data. Bernard took notes on a yellow legal pad, his pen moving quickly. When I finished, he set the pen down and looked at me directly. "The power of attorney you gave Bertha, what's the scope? Bill payments, utilities, mortgage. I set it up last year when I had the first cardiac episode. I rubbed my face, feeling every one of my 67 years. She can access my checking account. Not your investments. No, those are separate." He nodded slowly, already calculating. "Here's the problem. 6 months is a long time. With access to your accounts, even limited access, she could create complications. Transfer funds, claim they were legitimate expenses. By the time you return, it would be messy to untangle." The ache in my chest returned. "What can I do?" Bernard pulled out a fresh legal pad and started sketching. "Living trust. We transfer the house into it now, today. You remain the trustee with full lifetime rights to live there. Upon your death, the property passes according to the trust terms. But here's the key." He tapped the paper. "Once it's in the trust, Bertha's power of attorney can't touch it. The trust owns it, not you personally." I stared at the diagram he'd drawn, boxes and arrows, showing ownership flowing one way, while control stayed with me. "She'll know." "Not necessarily. We file it correctly, but we don't announce it. When she tries to make claims later, she'll discover the property isn't available." He paused. "Unless you want to tell her." A long silence filled the office. I pulled out my phone, looked at Elizabeth's photo on the lock screen. She would have been heartbroken. Our daughter, scheming against me. But Elizabeth wasn't here to be hurt anymore. "You protect what you built," Bernard said quietly. "That's not cruelty, Horace. That's wisdom." I put the phone away. "Call your notary. Let's do this now." Agnes Mason arrived at noon. Professional woman in her 50s, efficient movements, no small talk. She set up at Bernard's conference table, spreading documents across the polished surface. "Mr. Henry, I need to establish that you're entering this agreement voluntarily." Her voice was formal, practiced. "Has anyone coerced you or pressured you to create this trust?" "No." "Do you understand that by transferring the property at 1247 Ocean Drive, La Jolla, into this trust, you're changing the ownership structure?" "I do." "Do you understand you'll retain full rights to live in and use the property for your lifetime?" "Yes." She walked me through each page. Bernard had made me the initial trustee. Upon my death, or if I became incapacitated, Bernard would take over as successor trustee. The property would eventually pass to Bertha, but only on terms that prevented her from claiming it while I still needed it. Papers rustled. The notary stamp came down with a solid thunk. Agnes collected signatures, made copies, sealed everything in a manila envelope. "Keep this somewhere safe," she told me, "preferably not in your house." Bernard handed me a second envelope, thicker. "All the copies, plus documentation of the filing. Take this to Europe with you. If anything happens, if she tries anything, you'll have proof the house was already protected." I held the envelope, feeling its weight. Power of attorney papers meant nothing against this. My daughter had gambled on my vulnerability and lost before she'd even played her hand. "Thank you, Bernard." You did the right thing. He walked me to the door. Call me from Switzerland. Let me know you arrived safely. By the time I got home, darkness had settled over the neighborhood. I parked in the driveway, gathered the sealed envelope, and headed inside. Bertha and Melvin sat in the living room. They looked up when I entered, wearing those same false smiles from last night's dinner. "Dad, where were you all day?" Bertha's voice dripped with concern that didn't reach her eyes. "We were worried. Had errands to run, getting things in order before the trip." I pulled out the power of attorney papers from my jacket. "Here, you'll need these while I'm gone." Her eagerness showed too clearly. She took the documents quickly, scanning them, probably calculating what she could do with 6 months of access. "Of course, I'll take care of everything." Melvin stood, extended his hand for a weak handshake. I felt the falseness in his grip now, saw it in the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. They thought they'd won. They thought an old man with a weak heart was leaving them the keys to his kingdom. I excused myself, claiming fatigue. In my bedroom, I locked the door again and sat on the edge of the bed. Elizabeth's photo watched me from the nightstand. "I did what I had to, Elizabeth," I whispered. "She made her choice." The sealed envelope from Bernard's office went into my suitcase, tucked between clothes. My medication bottles lined up next to it, 6 months' worth, carefully counted and labeled. The passport, the treatment documents, the itinerary for Switzerland, everything in order. Tomorrow morning, final packing. Tomorrow evening, a flight across the ocean. 6 months of treatment, of recovery, of being far from the house where I'd raised a daughter who couldn't wait for me to disappear. I set my alarm for 5 in the morning. The flight left at noon. I wanted to be gone before Bertha woke up, before any more false goodbyes. My eyes closed, but sleep stayed distant. In 2 days, I'd be in Switzerland. Whatever happened while I was gone, I was ready. The flight to Zurich took 11 hours. By the time I checked into the clinic's guest residence, jet lag had settled into my bones like cold water. The Alps loomed outside my window, beautiful in different mountains that didn't care whether I lived or died. Pre-surgery testing consumed the first week. Blood work, cardiac imaging, consultations with specialists who spoke precise English with German accents. They poked and prodded, measured and documented. I appreciated the thoroughness. Engineers understand the value of preparation. "Your condition is serious, Mr. Henry." Dr. Weber studied my charts through rimless glasses. "But you are otherwise healthy. The procedure should go well." Should. That word carried weight. The surgery happened on a Thursday. I remembered the anesthesiologist's countdown, then nothing. When I woke, tubes everywhere. Monitors beeped rhythms I couldn't interpret. My chest felt like someone had cracked it open, which, technically, they had. "Successful," a nurse told me in accented English. "Rest now." 3 weeks blurred together. Physical therapy meant shuffling hallways with a walker, measuring progress in feet walked. My hands gripped handrails installed along institutional corridors. Each day, a little farther. Each breath, slightly easier. The first call from Bertha came in mid-March. I sat on the clinic's terrace, wrapped in a blanket despite the spring sunshine. My phone vibrated. Her name appeared on the screen. I debated ignoring it, then answered. "Daddy." Too bright, that voice. Artificial sweetness poured through the speaker. "How are you feeling? The surgery went okay?" "Recovery is slow." I kept my tone neutral. "What do you need?" A pause. She'd expected more conversation, more weakness to exploit. "Well, there's a small problem. The bathroom pipe burst. Water everywhere. The plumber says it's $3,000 to fix properly." 3,000? Small enough to seem reasonable. Large enough to test my boundaries. "Send me the invoice when it's done," I said. "Really? Just like that?" She sounded surprised. Good. Let her think I was too tired to question. "Take care of it." I ended the call before she could push further. Afterward, I made a note in my phone. Date, amount, her excuse. Engineering habits die hard. Document everything. April brought stronger legs and a suspicious transaction. Evening light painted the hotel room amber as I checked my banking app. Daily ritual, this monitoring. I scrolled through the checking account, utilities, mortgage, groceries, normal expenses. Then I saw it. Cash withdrawal, $15,000. My pulse quickened. The healed heart could still react to stress. I called her immediately. "Dad, Is everything all right? False concern dripped from every word. $15,000. Explain. Oh, that, she laughed, casual. The bathroom renovation. Once we opened the walls, we found more damage. Had to do the whole thing properly. I asked for photos of the plumber's work. You never sent them. I've been so busy. Send photos of the renovation. This week. My voice stayed level, but steel crept in underneath. Of course. I'll get those to you. She never did. I took screenshots of the transaction, created a folder on my tablet, evidence, added it to the file, watched the balance carefully after that. Late May arrived with warmer weather and growing unease. I called Bernard from the terrace. Same spot, different concern. I need you to check something. Name it. The property. Verify the trust status. Make sure nothing's changed. He called back the next morning. Trust intact. No title changes, no liens, nothing. It's locked tight. Relief washed through me, but suspicion lingered. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe. Bernard's voice carried doubt. Or maybe you're right to watch. One more month, then I'd fly home and see what she'd really done. Bertha's final call came in mid-June. With Father, I wanted to check in before you return. Father now, not Daddy. Formal distance wrapped in false warmth. We're so excited to see you. The house looks wonderful with all the improvements. Improvements? I leaned forward in my chair. Just little things, making it nicer for your return. Vague answer, deliberately unclear. I look forward to seeing what you've done. And your health? The doctors are pleased? Something in her tone, was that hope for bad news? Recovery exceeded expectations. I'll be home soon. Brief silence. That's wonderful, Father. We'll be here waiting. After hanging up, I stared at the mountains. Every word she'd spoken felt calculated, every pause measured. She was performing again, like that dinner in January. The one where she'd demanded my house. I pulled out my calendar, circled July 15th in red pen. 2 weeks until departure. Whatever she'd done, whatever she'd planned, I'd know soon enough. The doctors cleared me on a Wednesday. Your heart is stronger than most men half your age, Dr. Weber said, signing discharge papers. You have decades ahead of you, Mr. Henry. Decades Bertha had hoped I wouldn't have. I paid the final bill at the clinic's financial office. $187,000 transferred from my investment account, the one Bertha couldn't touch. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd survived the surgery she'd probably wished would kill me, using money she'd never access. Back in my hotel room, I packed methodically, clothes folded precisely, medications organized by dose. The sealed envelope Bernard had given me 6 months ago tucked between shirts, the trust documents. I'd carried them across an ocean and back. 2 days until my flight. Whatever waited for me in San Diego, I had the shield Bernard built. The tablet pinged at 9 in the evening, July 10th. I sat in my hotel room, charging the device before tomorrow's departure. Banking app notification lit the screen. I opened it without urgency, probably another utility payment. $275,000. Real estate deposit. 1247 Ocean Drive. My new heart hammered. Not from weakness this time, from rage. I called the bank immediately. A representative answered with professional neutrality. Mr. Henry, how may I help you? The deposit in my account. $275,000. Where did it come from? Keyboard clicks filled the pause. 1 moment, please. That's an escrow deposit from Pacific Coast Escrow Company. Authorized transaction per power of attorney, Mrs. Bertha Crawford. Thank you. I forced politeness through clenched teeth. That's all I needed? The call ended. I sat holding the tablet, staring at those numbers. She'd done it. While I was learning to walk again, she'd sold my home. 2 a.m, California time. I didn't care. Bernard answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Horace? What? She sold the house. Each word came out sharp. Deposits in my account. $275,000. Silence. Then I heard movement. Bernard fully awake now. When? Just appeared. Escrow deposit. Authorized by her power of attorney. Which she doesn't have for real estate transactions. His lawyer brain engaged instantly. The sale is void. She has no legal standing to sell property held in trust. She doesn't know about the trust. Exactly. And here's what we do. Don't call her. Don't let her know you know. Why not? Evidence. Let her think it worked. Let her celebrate. When you get home, we strike with everything. Right now, she's confident. Confident people make mistakes. My hand tightened on the phone. When do I arrive? Call me the second you land. We'll meet immediately. Don't go home first. After we hung up, I stood at the window. Zurich's lights spread below, a city sleeping while my daughter dismantled my life. The rage felt different than January's hurt. Cleaner, colder. She'd made her choice. Now I'd make mine. I'd learn the details later, from court documents and the realtor's testimony. On July 5th, while I was packing for departure, Bertha had called Gordon Hicks, a luxury realtor specializing in La Jolla properties. Her pitch came smooth and practiced. My father's in Europe for medical treatment, needs cash for bills. He authorized me to sell the house. Gordon had hesitated. Powers of attorney for financial matters didn't typically cover real estate. I'd normally want to speak with the owner directly. Find another realtor if you want. Bertha's voice turned ice. I don't have time for this. Father returns in 2 weeks. Commission greed overrode caution. Gordon agreed. The showing happened July 8th. Bertha walked through my house with proprietary confidence, pointing out ocean views and recent renovations. This will be mine eventually anyway, she'd told the buyers, a retired couple from Arizona, eager for California coastline. Price, $2.25 million. Below market value for speed. We need this closed quickly, Bertha had pressed, before father returns. Deposit transferred July 10th. 10% down. $275,000 into my account. She'd believed it would be easy. Sign papers, collect money, present me with a fait accompli when I returned. What could a sick old man do about it? But that July evening in Zurich, all I knew was the number on my screen and the fury in my chest. I packed that night instead of sleeping, each item placed with deliberate care. The trust envelope, still sealed, went into my carry-on bag. Medical documents joined it, passport, tickets, itinerary, everything in order. My reflection stared back from the darkened window. 67 years old, heart repaired, body stronger than it had been in years. The surgery had given me life. But my daughter? She'd killed something else entirely. The man who would have forgiven her. That man died in Switzerland. The man packing this suitcase knew exactly what he'd do. I touched my chest, felt the strong, steady beat. She'd watched me pack for this surgery. Hugged me goodbye. Waited for me to die, or at least stay gone. 6 months. That's how long she'd waited to steal from me. The house where Elizabeth and I had planned to grow old together. Sold for cash. No sleep came that night. I sat in darkness, watching clouds drift past the window, thinking about that deposit. $275,000 from a sale that never legally happened. The flight to San Diego took 12 hours. I didn't sleep, didn't read, just sat watching clouds and thinking about betrayal, about trust documents, about daughters who couldn't wait for their fathers to disappear. By the time we touched down at Lindbergh Field, I'd decided everything. First, let her welcome me home. Let her think it worked. Let her smile and hug and pretend she cared. Then show her what happens when you bet against a man's survival. Customs took 20 minutes. I waited at baggage claim, watching the carousel spin endlessly, thinking about the last time I'd stood here, heading to Switzerland, still believing my daughter loved me. The suitcase appeared. I grabbed it and headed outside. July heat hit like a wall. The taxi driver wanted to chat. Welcome back to San Diego. Where are you coming from? Europe. I kept my answers short, one word when possible. He gave up after 3 tries. We drove in silence, 6 months away. Everything looked the same, palm trees, traffic, familiar streets. But I wasn't the same. The man who'd left in January would have called Bertha from the airport, warned her I was coming. This man wanted to see what she'd hidden. My hand rested on the suitcase in my lap. The trust document sat in my inner jacket pocket, pressing against my chest, against my new strong heart. The truck appeared first, black, new, gleaming in my driveway like a trophy someone had won. I leaned forward, studying it through the taxi window. Dealer sticker still visible in the corner of the windshield, purchased July 13th, 2 days ago. $68,000, the price sheet said. I paid the driver, stood on my own sidewalk looking at my own house. Strange how familiar places become foreign when you see them through different eyes. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. Different smell, new carpet, new furniture, something artificial and expensive. The living room stopped me cold. 75-inch television mounted on the wall, price sticker still attached to the corner, like Bertha wanted me to see what she'd bought. $4,499. Leather sofa beneath it, tags partially removed but visible. $4,500. They weren't even trying to hide it. Pride in their theft. I walked to my study. My sanctuary, mostly untouched except for papers scattered across the desk. Not how I'd left them. Someone had been searching for something or just didn't care about order anymore. The sale documents sat on top. Right there in the open, like she'd wanted me to find them. Or maybe just careless confidence. I read slowly, absorbing every detail. Sale date, July 12th. Price, $2,750,000. Buyers, Clarence and Mabel Mason. Bertha's signature at the bottom, flowing and confident. Authorized by power of attorney. My new heart beat steady. Strong, ready. The front door opened. Shopping bags rustled. Bertha's laugh carried down the hallway, carefree, victorious. I stood in the study doorway, documents in hand, waiting. She rounded the corner, loaded with bags. Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's. Her expression shifted when she saw me. Surprise, then fear flickering across her face for just 1 second, then forced brightness. "Daddy!" Too loud, too enthusiastic. "You're home! We didn't know when you'd arrive." She hugged me. I let her, but my arms stayed at my sides. Melvin appeared behind her, carrying more bags, trying to disappear into the wall. His eyes met mine, then dropped. "Wanted to surprise you," I said quietly. "Well, you succeeded." She pulled back, that smile stretched too tight. "Come, sit down. You must be exhausted from the flight." "I am." I held up the papers. "But first, explain this." The kitchen table became our battlefield. I sat at the head, my house, my authority, and placed the documents between us. Bertha took the chair across from me. Melvin hovered by the door like he might need to run. "What is this, Bertha?" She glanced at the papers, and I watched her calculate. "Those are, well, I was going to tell you. Tell me now. The medical bills." She leaned forward, earnest. "Your treatment cost so much, and I thought, I paid my own medical bills from my investment account, the one you can't access." My voice stayed level, engineering precision cutting through her story. "Try again." Her jaw tightened. "Fine. It's about planning for the future. You're not getting younger, and this house is too much for you to maintain. So you sold it. I secured our future." Her volume rose. "The doctors gave no guarantees. Your heart could have failed. I had to protect us." Silence filled the kitchen. I let her words hang there, exposed. "You were waiting for me to die." "No, I prepared for the worst case. You sold my house while I was in surgery, bought a Tesla for Gertrude." I pulled out my phone, showed her the bank transactions I'd screenshotted. 62,000, another Tesla for Vernon, 95,000, a truck for Melvin, 68,000. That's $225,000. And the rest? Her face flushed. "It's in a joint account, under my name. $2.5 million. The closing hasn't happened yet. You spent $250,000 in days." I set the phone down carefully. "On cars, to impress your in-laws." Melvin shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Henry, we can explain." "No." I didn't look at him. "This is between my daughter and me." Bertha's hands clenched on the table. "What are you going to do? Sue me? I'm your daughter. You sold my home, the house your mother and I built together, where we raised you, where she died." Each sentence came out measured, controlled. While I was fighting to survive. Tears appeared in her eyes. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe she didn't know either. "I thought you weren't coming back," she whispered. There it was, the truth finally spoken. "I know, I heard you say it, January through my bedroom door. Maybe he won't come back. You were counting on it." Her face went pale. She'd forgotten about that conversation, or thought I'd been too upset to hear clearly. "I'm tired." I stood, gathering the documents. "Need to rest." "Wait, Daddy, we can work this out." "Don't call me that." I stopped at the kitchen doorway. You lost that right when you hoped I'd die. The study door closed behind me. I heard Bertha's voice rising in the kitchen, Melvin's quieter responses. He can't do anything. The sale's complete. Money's spent. He seemed different, colder. He's old and recovering. He'll calm down. We'll negotiate. Her blind confidence would have been funny if it weren't so tragic. She had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my phone. Bernard answered on the first ring. I'm home. How bad is it? Cars for her in-laws. $225,000 spent already. She admitted she thought I wouldn't return. My voice stayed steady, factual. Engineer reporting data. She has no idea about the trust. Good. Keep it that way. Tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. We start the counterattack. See you then. After I hung up, the house felt too quiet. I looked at Elizabeth's photo on my desk. She smiled back at me from 40 years ago, young and hopeful. She'd never imagined our daughter would become this. One night. I could give Bertha one more night thinking she'd won. Dinner happened in silence. She tried conversation twice, about my health, about the weather, then gave up. I went to bed early, lay in darkness, listening to them whisper in the living room, planning their defense probably, thinking about how to negotiate with me, how to keep what they'd stolen. They didn't know I'd already won. Morning would show them. I woke at 6, showered, dressed in my courtroom suit, navy blue, pressed sharp. Military standards never leave you. When I came downstairs, Bertha and Melvin's bedroom door was still closed. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Appointment downtown, back this afternoon. By 8:30, I was sitting in Bernard's parking lot, watching the building. Same spot I'd occupied 6 months ago, desperate and afraid. Different man now. The surgery had repaired more than my heart. Bernard met me at his office door. Coffee? Please. His conference room looked like a war room. Documents spread across the table in organized piles, trust copies, sale paperwork, bank statements, timeline charts. He'd been preparing. Walk me through it, I said, sitting down. Bernard pulled out a large notepad, started drawing. January 27th, he marked the date. House enters trust. You're no longer the direct owner. The trust is. You're the trustee with lifetime rights. Bertha's power of attorney covers your personal accounts and bill payments. Nothing more. And the sale? July 10th, Bertha attempts to sell property she doesn't own. Her POA is worthless here. He drew an X through a diagram. The sale is void from the beginning. She had zero authority. What about criminal charges? Bernard set down his pen, looked at me directly. She spent $225,000 in days. Told you she thought you'd die. That's not a daughter making mistakes. That's calculated theft. She's still my daughter, is she? He pushed the bank statements toward me. A daughter doesn't hope her father dies so she can sell his house. I stared at the numbers. He was right. Start with voiding the sale. We'll see about criminal later. Fair enough. Bernard pulled out a checklist. Today's agenda. Verify title at county recorder's office. Stop the escrow. Notify buyers. Prepare the lawsuit. Full offensive. We arrived at the county building by 10:30. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as a clerk pulled up the property records on her computer. Owner of record, Henry Family Trust. Trustee, Bernard Boyd. Recorded January 27th, 2025. She scrolled down. There's a pending transfer request from Pacific Coast Escrow, scheduled to record July 22nd. 6 days away? Bertha had almost made it. That transfer needs to be contested, Bernard told the clerk. We're filing formal objection within the hour. If I died, I said quietly as we walked back to his car. If the surgery had failed, but you didn't. You're here, and we're stopping this. Back at Bernard's office, he put his phone on speaker, dialed Pacific Coast Escrow. This is Emma Spaulding. How may I help you? Mrs. Spaulding, Bernard Boyd, attorney for Horace Henry. I'm calling regarding your file on 1247 Ocean Drive, La Jolla. Oh yes, the Mason transaction. Closing is next Tuesday. No, it isn't. The sale is fraudulent. The seller had no authority. Her voice shifted, professional confidence cracking. I'm sorry, what? I'm sending trust documents within the hour. The property isn't owned by Horace Henry personally. It's held in trust. Bertha Crawford's power of attorney doesn't give her authority to sell trust property. Keyboard clicking in the background. But we have the POA right here. Read it carefully. It covers personal accounts and bill payments, not real estate transactions, not trust assets. Long pause. I need to consult my supervisor. Do that. But know this. If you complete this sale, your company becomes an accessory to fraud. I suggest you halt all processes immediately. I'll get back to you. Bernard ended the call. We looked at each other. First domino fallen. The afternoon call was harder. Clarence Mason answered on the third ring, excited. Hello? Mr. Mason, this is Bernard Boyd. I'm an attorney calling about the Ocean Drive property. Oh, is this about the closing date? We're all set for Tuesday. Mr. Mason, I'm afraid the sale can't proceed. The seller lacked legal authority. Silence. Then, what do you mean? We have a signed contract. Mrs. Crawford sold her father's house without permission or legal right. The property is held in trust. She had no authority to sell it. This is insane, his voice rose. We've already given notice on our rental. We hired movers. My wife, Mabel, get on the line. Shuffling sounds. What's happening? A woman's voice, worried. They're saying the sale is canceled. What? We already put down $275,000. Your deposit will be refunded, Bernard said calmly, plus reasonable expenses for your moving cancellation. She told us her father was dying. Mabel's voice shook. She said he wanted this sale. We thought we were helping. Listening to them, watching their dream collapse, I felt something twist in my chest. These people had done nothing wrong. They'd believe Bertha's lies. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said quietly. My daughter deceived you too. We'll sue her ourselves. Clarence's anger shifted target. For fraud, for damages. You're welcome to pursue that. Bernard glanced at me. But I think you'll find she doesn't have much left to take. After the call ended, I sat in silence. They were innocent. Yes, Bertha hurt them too. Remember that. I got home around 7. Bertha and Melvin sat at the dinner table, steak already on plates. They looked up when I entered. How was your appointment? Bertha's cheerfulness sounded forced. Productive. What kind of business? Financial matters. I sat down, picked up my knife, cut the steak slowly, precisely. Her fingers drummed the table. Everything okay? Fine. The silence stretched. She couldn't stand it. About yesterday. Maybe we can find a compromise? Perhaps. I didn't look up from my plate. I could return some of the money, not all of it. We already bought the cars. Can't just return them, but some. How much is some? I don't know. We'd have to figure it out. She leaned forward. But we can work this out. Family works things out. I set down my knife, looked at her directly. Justice finds a way. Her smile faltered. What does that mean? You'll see. I stood, leaving half the steak uneaten. Excuse me? In my study, I checked email before bed. Bernard had sent a message time-stamped 30 minutes ago. Escrow officially frozen. Emma Spaulding called back. Her supervisor was furious, immediately halted all processes. Buyer's attorney contacted us. The Masons want their deposit back tomorrow. Bertha will get official notification tomorrow morning. Hope you're ready. I wrote back, I'm ready. I've been ready since Zurich. Outside my window, the street was quiet, peaceful. Tomorrow, Bertha's world would start crumbling. She'd wake up thinking she still had control, still had her stolen money and her confidence. By noon, she'd know better. By evening, she'd understand what happens when you bet against someone's survival and lose. Morning came. I was drinking coffee in my study when I heard Bertha's phone ring in her bedroom. 7:30, too early for social calls. I set down my cup, waited. Her voice carried through the wall. Hello? Groggy, then sharp. What? Silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Then, screaming, footsteps running. Melvin's confused voice. What's wrong? Bertha, what? She burst from the bedroom in her bathrobe, phone clutched white-knuckled, face drained of color. Didn't knock on my study door, just threw it open. What did you do? I stayed seated, coffee cup in hand. Good morning to you too. They say the house is in a trust. Her voice climbed higher. The escrow company just called. They're freezing everything. What does that mean? It means exactly what it sounds like. I took another sip. I transferred the property to a trust, January 27th, before I left for Switzerland. Understanding dawned across her face. Confusion became comprehension, became fury. You set me up. You didn't trust me. I protected myself. My voice stayed level. You proved I was right. But I have to return $275,000. Panic replaced anger. I don't have it. Where is it? She couldn't lie now. Too desperate. The cars, furniture, I spent it. That's your problem. I set my cup down carefully. You created this mess. You solve it. You're really not going to help me? I looked at her, just looked, then returned my attention to my coffee. Her explosion shook the walls, screaming about unfairness, about family, about cruel fathers and dutiful daughters. I didn't respond. Eventually she ran out of words, slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Through the wall, I heard her pacing. Phone calls started immediately. Gordon Hicks, it's Bertha Crawford. We need to talk about that sale. What? No, listen, there's been a misunderstanding. Her voice rose. You said my father authorized this. I have the power of attorney right here. Pause. What do you mean you can't represent me? Gordon. Dial tone must have answered. I heard her throw something. Phone hitting couch cushions. Next call. I need a lawyer. Real estate law. How much is your retainer? 5,000? For what? Long pause. Fine. Tomorrow at 10. The calls continued all morning, each one more desperate than the last. I stayed in my study, reading a book, listening to her world disintegrate through the wall. Around noon, Melvin knocked softly on my door. Mr. Henry, can we talk? About what? Bertha's really struggling. Maybe we could work something out. Some kind of payment plan? With what income? I didn't open the door. She earns $30,000 a year. You earn less. Do the math. His footsteps retreated. That afternoon, Bertha's voice took on a new quality, hollow, defeated. I heard her on the phone with her in-laws. Vernon, please, I need you to understand the situation. False brightness strained to breaking. Those cars I gave you, I need to... No, wait, let me explain. Vernon, Gertrude. Silence. Then the sound of a phone being set down very carefully. Not thrown this time, just placed on the table like something too fragile to handle. Evening came. Bertha sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. I heard Melvin's voice, quieter than usual. If we sell your Audi and my truck, still not enough. How much short? A lot. Too much. Their conversation faded into silence, the kind that comes when there are no good options left. The next morning, a courier arrived. I heard the doorbell, listened to Bertha sign for something, paper tearing, her gasp. It's from the buyer's attorney. They're suing for the deposit plus expenses. They want $290,000. Melvin's voice. We need a lawyer. They left together. I watched from my window as they climbed into Melvin's truck, the truck bought with stolen money. The irony probably wasn't lost on them. When they returned that afternoon, Bertha's face looked older, hard lines around her mouth that hadn't been there yesterday. Bankruptcy. She said the word like a curse. The lawyer says it's the only option unless we can pay everything back. And if we can't pay, then the lawsuit continues, judgment against us. They can garnish wages for 20 years. Or, she stopped. Or what? Or someone files criminal charges, then it's prison, 2 to 5 years. Through my study door, I heard her crying. Real tears this time, not manipulation. The sound of someone understanding consequences for the first time in her life. July 19th arrived hot and miserable. Bertha left early. Melvin told me later she'd gone to Vernon and Gertrude's house. She came back 3 hours later, didn't speak, just went to her bedroom and closed the door. Melvin knocked on my study. They refused, said the cars were gifts, told her not to come back. Those cars are worth enough to cover most of the debt. She knows. His voice was heavy. They know too, but they're keeping them. Guilt flickered in my chest. Vernon and Gertrude hadn't stolen anything. Bertha had given them those cars freely, with money that wasn't hers. Now she needed them back, and they were refusing. Technically legal, morally complicated, but that was Bertha's problem to solve. That evening, she knocked on my study door, soft, polite, not barging in this time. I opened it, stood in the doorway, didn't invite her inside. She dropped to her knees right there in the hallway. Please, her voice broke. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, but I'm your daughter. Don't let me fall this far. Something twisted in my chest. Seeing her like this, broken, desperate, on her knees, should have moved me. Part of me wanted to help. The father in me wanted to lift her up, promise everything would be okay. But I'd promised myself something else. In Switzerland. On that plane ride home, this was the moment. You made your choice when you sold my house while hoping I'd die. I didn't mean, yes you did. I looked down at her, my daughter, kneeling, begging. You told me yourself. I thought you weren't coming back. You counted on it, planned for it, spent money before my body was even cold. I'm sorry, I'll leave your house. Pay back everything. Write any papers you want. You earn $30,000 a year. The debt is $290,000. That's 10 years if you give me every penny you make. 20 years realistically. I'll do it, whatever it takes. No. The word came out flat, final. You won't, because you've never faced real consequences. You always believed someone would save you, that I'd save you. Dad, please. I don't have a daughter anymore, just a woman who tried to rob me. I stepped back, closed the door, her fist pounded against it. Dad, please, I'm your daughter. Silence from my side. I hate you, you're destroying me. More silence. Please. Sobbing now. Just help me. I sat at my desk, staring at Elizabeth's photo, listening to our daughter cry in the hallway. My new heart beat strong and steady. The surgery had saved my life. But sitting here, listening to this, I wondered what kind of life I'd saved. Melvin's voice eventually pulled her away. He's not coming out. Come on. Their bedroom door closed. The house fell quiet except for muffled crying through the walls. I let Melvin lead me back to our bedroom. Through the door, I heard nothing from my father's study. No movement, no sound, like he wasn't even there, or like I wasn't. The next morning, a courier arrived with official papers, lawsuits, plural. The walls weren't just closing in anymore. They'd arrived. The courier made me sign for the envelope. My hand shook so badly the signature looked like a child's scribble. Melvin stood behind me, silent witness to my unraveling. When the courier left, I tore it open right there on the porch. Simpson and Partners, legal letterhead, professional language that meant destruction. On behalf of Clarence and Mabel Mason, we demand full restitution of deposit plus documented expenses totaling $290,000. Failure to comply within 30 days will result in judgment and asset seizure. 30 days, 4 weeks to find money I didn't have. We need to see that lawyer again, Melvin said quietly. Clarence Boyd's office occupied a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparer. Yellowed walls, worn furniture, the smell of old coffee and older dreams. He looked up when we entered, gray hair, rumpled suit, eyes that had seen too many people in exactly our situation. Mrs. Crawford, not a question. He'd been expecting us. I slid the lawsuit across his desk. He read it without surprise. 3 options. He held up fingers like counting down to execution. 1. Find $290,000. 2. Negotiate payment plan. 3. File bankruptcy. What about option 4? My voice sounded thin. What about fighting this? Fighting what? He leaned back in his chair. You sold property you didn't own, spent money that wasn't yours. There's no defense here, just damage control. But the power of attorney covered your father's personal accounts, not trust assets. Any first-year law student could explain that to you. Melvin shifted beside me. What happens if we can't pay? Judgment? Wage garnishment? Could take 20 years to clear at your income levels. He paused. That's the civil side. If anyone files criminal charges, you're looking at fraud, 2 to 5 years. The air left my lungs. Prison? Possible, not guaranteed. Depends if they want to make an example. He pulled out forms. My advice? File bankruptcy before they force involuntary bankruptcy. At least keep some control. How much does that cost? $5,000 to file properly. $5,000 I didn't have to avoid debt I couldn't pay. The irony tasted like metal. We left his office in silence. Melvin drove. I stared out the window, watching San Diego pass by like a city I didn't recognize anymore. We sell the cars, I said finally. Both of them. That afternoon, CarMax made me an offer on my Audi, $38,000, below value for quick sale. I signed the papers without negotiating. Watched them drive it away, feeling like I was selling organs. At home, I spread papers across the kitchen table. Bank statements, loan offers, credit card limits. Melvin brought the calculator. Current balance, 19,847. My voice sounded mechanical. Plus, 38 from the Audi equals 57,847. My truck's worth maybe 62,000. That's 119,847, still short 170,000. The numbers didn't lie. Even stripping ourselves bare, we couldn't reach the goal. Melvin set down the calculator. Bankruptcy might be the only way. That destroys everything. Credit gone for 7 years. Can't rent apartments. Can't get car loans. Everything's already destroyed. His voice was flat, accepting. This is just the paperwork. But I wasn't ready to accept, not yet. The next morning, I drove to Vernon and Gertrude's house. Borrowed car, mine was gone. The Teslas gleamed in their driveway, perfect and expensive, bought with my father's money through my stupidity. Vernon opened the door, saw me, his face hardened. I told you not to come back. Please, I need you to sell the cars and return the money. I'm in legal trouble. Not my problem. He started closing the door. Wait! I put my hand against it. Those cars, I gave them to you, but I need them back. Please. No. One word. Absolute. Gertrude appeared behind him. Vernon, shut the door. She's shameless. I'm begging you. I could go to prison. Should have thought of that before you stole from your father. Vernon pushed my hand off the door. We're honest people. We don't want your drama. The door slammed. I stood on their porch, staring at those cars. $157,000 sitting right there. Enough to solve most of my problems. Given freely with money I'd stolen, now beyond my reach. Melvin pulled me away. I was crying too hard to drive. At home, I wrote an email to the Mason's attorney. Formal, professional, desperate. I can provide $120,000 immediately. I propose a payment plan of $500 monthly for the remaining balance. $500 a month for 28 years. I'd be 66 when the debt was clear, older than my father was now. The reply came the same day. Your proposal is rejected. Full payment of $290,000 required by August 1st, or legal proceedings continue. No negotiations, no payment plans. Melvin read over my shoulder. They're not bending. Why would they? My laugh sounded hollow. We're thieves who got caught. That evening, July 25th, I approached my father's study, knocked softly, waited. He opened the door, stood there looking at me with eyes that used to hold love. I have $120,000. The words came out rehearsed. I'll give you that. Sign a promissory note for the rest. Leave your house forever. How will you repay? His voice was neutral. Engineering analysis, nothing more. I'll find full-time work. Every penny goes to you. You earn $30,000 part-time. Full-time might get you 45, maybe 50. Living expenses, taxes. You'd pay maybe $20,000 a year if you lived like a monk. He was right. I knew he was right. That's minimum 8 years. Realistically, 20 years, you're 38. You'll be 58 before I see full repayment. But it's something. Desperation leaked into my voice. Better than nothing? He paused, long enough that hope flickered in my chest like a candle in wind. I'll think about it, he said finally. Give you an answer tomorrow. Not yes, but not no. That tiny gap between refusal and consideration felt like oxygen after drowning. Thank you. I almost collapsed with relief. Thank you, Dad. He closed the door without responding. I went back to our bedroom. Melvin was on his laptop, researching bankruptcy attorneys. I stopped him. He's thinking about it. He said tomorrow. Don't get your hopes up. It's the first time he hasn't said no. That means something. Melvin didn't argue, but his expression said he didn't believe. I lay awake that night, listening to the house settle. My father's study light showed under his door until past midnight. Was he thinking about me, about his decision, or just reading unbothered while I drowned? In his study, I sat with the phone in my hand. Bernard had answered on the first ring. She offered $120,000 now. Rest over years. You considering it? Part of me wants to help. She is my daughter. And the other part? She doesn't deserve it. Bernard let that sit a moment. Then, if you help now, what does she learn? That I'll always rescue her. Exactly. She sold your house thinking you'd die. Spent $250,000 in days. Now consequences arrive, and she wants rescue again. But prison? Only if someone files criminal charges. Civil lawsuits lead to bankruptcy, not prison. She survives, starts over, learns. Bankruptcy ruins her. Her actions ruined her. Bankruptcy is just the paperwork. Silence stretched between us. Then Bernard asked the key question. What's best for you, not her, you? I looked at Elizabeth's photo on my desk. What would she have wanted? Probably mercy, forgiveness. But Elizabeth never knew this version of our daughter. Never saw the coldness in her eyes when she said, I thought you weren't coming back. Getting my house back, having peace. I spoke slowly, thinking it through. And she needs to understand consequences are real. Then you know the answer. Knowing doesn't make it easier. Right things rarely are. After we hung up, I sat alone in the darkness. Elizabeth's photo in one hand, my new strong heartbeat in my chest. Where had we gone wrong raising her? Too much? Too little? She'd become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could look at her father and see dollar signs instead of family. If I saved her now, she'd learn nothing. Just learn that Daddy always saves her. That tears and pleas could override justice. But she was my daughter. How could I watch her fall? How could I reward what she'd done? The answer hurt, but it was clear. Loving her meant letting her face this. Only way she might change. Maybe in 10 years, 20, she'd understand why I had to do this. Maybe not. But I'd know I'd done the right thing, the hard thing. I sat there until midnight, listening to Bertha and Melvin's voices murmuring through the wall, planning their bankruptcy probably, their destroyed credit, their restart from nothing. Tomorrow I'd give her my answer. Tonight, I sat with the weight of being a father who had to choose justice over mercy. The choice was made. Now I just had to say it. Morning came cold. I woke at 6, made coffee, sat at my desk staring at the eviction notice I'd printed the night before. Blank signature line, waiting for my pen. At 8, I called her. Bertha, my study, now. Through the wall, I heard her gasp, surprise or hope, impossible to tell. She appeared in my doorway within minutes, hair uncombed, still in yesterday's clothes. Hope and dread warred across her face. Sit down. She took the chair across from my desk, hands folded in her lap, waiting. I didn't make her wait long. No point in cruelty for cruelty's sake. I'm not giving you money. The words landed like stones. She blinked, processed. Confusion became comprehension, became something darker. But I thought, you said you'd think about it. I did. The answer is no. Why? Her voice climbed. I offered everything. $120,000, a promissory note. I'll pay you back. Over 20 years, maybe, if you find full-time work, if you never miss a payment, if life doesn't intervene. I kept my tone clinical. Engineering analysis, nothing more. You made your choice when you sold my house, hoping I'd die. Now, live with the consequences. But I'm your daughter. Biologically, yes. She stood abruptly. This is my life falling apart. Don't you care? You cared about my life when you hoped surgery would kill me? I stayed seated, calm. You cared when you spent $250,000 in days? When you bought cars for your in-laws to impress them? I made a mistake. No, mistakes are accidents. You planned this, executed it, celebrated it. Her hands clenched. What am I supposed to do? File bankruptcy. It's the legal option designed for situations like this. Realization crossed her face. You researched it. You consulted lawyers about my options. I learned what pathways existed. You planned this whole thing, set me up. I protected myself. You proved I needed to. I reached for the eviction notice, picked up my pen. And now I'm protecting my home. The pen moved across paper, my signature, official and final. I stood, extended the document toward her. She grabbed it, read it. Her face went white. Then she tore it up. Paper pieces fell like snow between us. White confetti of our destroyed relationship. I'll mail the official copy. My voice stayed level. This changes nothing. Where will I go? Desperation replaced rage. Not my problem anymore. I hate you! The words came out strangled. I hate you so much. I know. Something cracked in my chest. My voice trembled. Just slightly, but enough. But I'm doing the right thing. She stormed out. The door slammed hard enough to shake the frame. I sat back down, looked at the torn paper on my floor, didn't clean it up, just sat there staring at the pieces of the notice that would soon arrive by certified mail, legal, binding, unignorable. The next 4 days blurred together in a fog of avoidance. Bertha barely spoke to me. She met with Clarence Boyd twice. I heard her on the phone making appointments. Papers accumulated on their kitchen table like snow drifting. At night, I heard her crying through the walls. Didn't go to her. Couldn't. On July 30th, she filed. Chapter 7, Bankruptcy. The automatic stay went into effect. All lawsuits frozen. She thought it was relief. I knew it was just a different kind of falling. August 1st brought the official eviction notice. The courier made her sign. I watched from my study window as she stood on the porch holding that envelope, Melvin beside her. Both of them understanding this was real now. Irreversible. They spent the next days apartment hunting. I overheard their return from one showing. A studio, they said. $1,800 a month for a single room. Half of Melvin's take-home pay. Bertha's voice when she described it, hollow. This was their future. Small, cramped, starting over from nothing. August 5th arrived hot and merciless. The federal courthouse loomed downtown, all concrete and glass, and the weight of consequences made official. I arrived early, sat in the gallery. Bernard joined me, nodded once. No words needed. Bertha entered with Clarence Boyd. She looked 10 years older than 6 months ago. Gray under her eyes, clothes hanging loose, hands trembling as she took her seat at the defendant's table. Judge Margaret Wilson presided. Senior, stern, efficient. She opened proceedings without preamble. Mrs. Crawford, you understand you're surrendering all non-exempt assets in exchange for discharge of debts? Bertha's voice came out barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. The trustee, Robert Johnson, presented his report. Gray suit, calculator mind, no sympathy. Assets total $128,000. Debts total $298,500. Distribution will provide approximately 43 cents per dollar owed. The buyer's attorney shot to his feet, young, angry, righteous. Your Honor, this is outrageous. Mrs. Crawford committed fraud. She sold property she didn't own, spent the money on luxury vehicles, and now hides behind bankruptcy protection. Judge Wilson's expression didn't change. Chapter 7 doesn't assess guilt, counsel. It distributes assets according to priority. If you wish to file criminal charges, that's your prerogative. This proceeding grants discharge. We're strongly considering criminal prosecution, Your Honor. Bertha whispered something urgent to Clarence Boyd. He leaned close, explained something. Her face went paler. 2 to 5 years if convicted, I heard him say quietly. But they'd have to prove intent. The hearing continued. Technical language, legal formalities, distribution approved, discharge granted, 30 minutes that destroyed and rebuilt a life simultaneously. When the judge's gavel fell, Bertha sat motionless. Melvin touched her shoulder. She didn't respond. I stood to leave. Bernard beside me. We'd reached the hallway when I heard her voice. You satisfied? I turned. She stood 10 feet away, small, defeated, but eyes burning with something, hate, pain, maybe both. You destroyed me. You destroyed yourself. I kept my voice low. People passed around us, other cases, other lives. I just refused to enable it. I'm your daughter. You're supposed to help me. I'm also a person, with rights, with property you tried to steal. It would have been mine eventually anyway. Eventually, after I died naturally. Not after you hoped I'd die on an operating table. She flinched. I didn't mean, yes you did. You told me yourself. I thought you weren't coming back. Those were your words. Silence stretched between us. The courthouse bustled around our frozen moment. It's not too late, her voice broke. You can stop this. Withdraw the eviction. Help me rebuild. No. One word. Absolute. Why not? Because you need to go through this. My voice trembled again, that crack in the armor I couldn't quite seal. You need to fall. Only by falling can you learn to stand on your own. That's not love. Tears streamed down her face now. That's cruelty. Maybe. Time will tell. I turned to leave. I'll never forgive you. Her cry echoed in the corridor. I stopped. Didn't turn around. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I continued walking. Bernard fell into step beside me. Behind us, I heard her collapse onto a bench, sobbing. Melvin's quiet voice trying to comfort. I didn't look back. Outside, sunshine felt wrong, too bright, too cheerful. The world continuing like normal, while inside that building, something had ended. Melvin found me on that bench, led me outside to the car. He started driving. I stared out the window, watching the courthouse shrink in the side mirror. "What did your father say?" Melvin asked quietly. I couldn't answer, just watch buildings pass. Inside that courthouse, something had ended. Whether it was my old life or my relationship with my father, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. 2 weeks passed in a blur of paperwork and finality. August 20th brought closure, the kind that felt like amputation. The bankruptcy trustee distributed assets. Buyers got $125,000. The trust got $3,600. Clarence Boyd got $3,000 for his work. The rest of my debts erased, legally void. Practically devastating. I was free and completely broke. That same afternoon, Clarence Boyd called with unexpected news. The buyers weren't filing criminal charges. Too much trouble, too little gain, their lawyer said. They'd gotten some money back. That would have to be enough. I'd dodged prison. Should have felt like celebrating. Felt like mourning. August 25th arrived with a moving truck. I watched from the bedroom window as Melvin and I loaded boxes. My father's house, not mine anymore, never really was, stood behind me. 3 years I'd lived here, thought it would be forever. The truck cost $500. I didn't have it. Found an envelope slipped under my door that morning. Cash, no note. Knew it was from him. One last kindness wrapped in silence. Melvin carried furniture. I handled the lighter boxes. My father appeared in his study window once. We made eye contact through glass, seconds stretching like hours. Neither of us waved. Neither of us looked away. Then I got in the car. Melvin drove. The house disappeared behind us. My father stood at that window long after we left. I don't know if he was relieved or regretful. Maybe both. Probably both. The next morning, he walked through my empty room, stood at the doorway looking at bare walls where my childhood had happened, where I'd studied for exams, gossiped on the phone, dreamed about futures that never came. He stripped the bed, washed everything, erased me from the space I'd occupied. Practical, he'd say. Necessary, he'd think. Painful, he wouldn't admit. That evening, he sat alone at the dinner table. Too much space, too much quiet. He'd gotten what he wanted, his house back, his boundaries established, his justice served. Victories aren't supposed to feel this hollow. August 27th, he drove to La Jolla, to the beach house he and my mother had bought together, their retirement dream. First time he'd been there since before Switzerland. He sat in the car a long time before going inside. Key still worked. I'd never changed the locks. Inside smelled musty from months closed up. He opened windows. Ocean breeze filled the rooms, salt air, seagulls crying. The terrace overlooked the Pacific. Endless blue meeting, endless sky. He stood at the railing, wind in his hair, sun warm on his face. His new heart beat strong and steady. Healthy body, wounded spirit. For the first time in months, he smiled. Small, genuine. Bernard arrived an hour later with coffee. They sat on the terrace, two old friends watching waves. "How do you feel?" Bernard asked. "Like I won." My father paused. "And lost." "You did both." They drank coffee in silence. The ocean provided conversation enough. The next day brought more paperwork. Agnes Mason notarizing the property transfer. Full circle, the house going from my father's name to the trust and back again. "You did something harder than most parents can," Agnes said as he signed. "You set boundaries." Bernard added, "You gave her consequences, not punishment. There's a difference." My father nodded but didn't speak. What was there to say? He'd done what he'd done. Time would prove it right or wrong. August 29th, an envelope arrived in his mail. My handwriting. He held it unopened for 10 minutes, afraid, maybe, or preparing himself. Finally, he opened it. My words said I didn't understand yet, that I was working retail at West Elm, making $45,000 a year, more than I'd ever earned, learning what money meant when you had to earn it yourself, living in 400 square feet with Melvin, starting to see things differently. Not an apology, but an acknowledgement. Maybe someday I can look you in the eyes without shame, I'd written. Not now, but maybe. He talked to my mother's photo that night, told her about the letter, about me starting to understand, not fully, but starting. He kept the letter, filed it in his desk drawer. Hope, fragile, tentative, stirred in his chest. The next morning, Bernard called with news. I'd been hired full-time, $45,000 a year, benefits, stability. Melvin working too. We were surviving. My father felt something unexpected, gladness. I want her well, he told Bernard, just not at my expense. That's a healthy boundary, Bernard replied. Took you 67 years to learn it. Better late than never. August 31st arrived with sunset colors. My father sat on his beach house terrace, ocean stretching to infinity, my mother's photo in his hand. He thought about the 8 months in Switzerland, left sick, returned healthy, heart healed, heart broken. I'd tried to rob him. He'd stopped me, evicted me, watched me fall. Some would call him cruel. Maybe he was. But he'd set boundaries, showed consequences existed, taught the lesson no one else would teach. Now I lived small, worked hard, learned value. Money, trust, family. He'd saved his house, lost his daughter, temporarily, he hoped. Was it a fair price? He didn't know. But without justice, what remained? Chaos, a world without consequences. He couldn't allow that, even for his daughter, especially for his daughter. Maybe someday I'd understand. He loved me enough to let me fall. Only the fallen can learn to rise. Or maybe I'd hate him forever. He had to accept that possibility. Doctors said he had 15 to 20 years. Ironic. He'd survived the surgery I'd hoped would kill him. Now he lived. I survived. And that felt right. Life continuing, waves crashing, sun setting and rising, breath in lungs, heart beating. He'd kept what was his, protected what mattered, and maybe, just maybe, saved me from myself. Time would tell. His phone vibrated. Text message from me. Thank you. I don't understand now, but maybe someday I will. He stared at the screen a long time. Finally typed, I hope so. Paused, added, take care of yourself, Bertha. Sent. Whispered to the empty air, take care, daughter. Set the phone down. Returned his gaze to the sunset. Not resolution, but possibility. A door left open, not wide, but cracked. Enough light through for hope. The sun touched the horizon. He'd sit here and watch it disappear. Tomorrow, he'd wake in his own house, walk his own beach, live his own life. The life he'd fought to keep. I was out there somewhere, starting over. We weren't reconciled, might never be, but I was alive, working, learning. That was enough. For now, it had to be enough. The Pacific turned gold, then crimson, then purple. He stayed until stars appeared. Time to go home. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.